All right, everybody, lock in because today we are doing one of the most important skills for the CSEC English B exam. We are connecting themes to dramatic techniques in Twelfth Night. Not just spotting a technique, not just identifying a theme, actually explaining how Shakespeare uses dramatic techniques to develop meaning. Because this is where many students lose marks. They identify the device, but they do not discuss how it helps portray the theme. So as we go through this lesson, keep asking yourself, what is Shakespeare helping the audience realize? All right, let's go. One major theme in Twelfth Night is love as foolish and unreasonable. Shakespeare presents love as emotional, impulsive, dramatic, and sometimes honestly ridiculous. Right at the beginning of the play, Orsino is lying around listening to music while thinking about Olivia. And he says, if music be the food of love, play on. Quick context here. Orsino is obsessed with Olivia, but instead of doing something practical, he sits dramatically feeding his emotions with music. Shakespeare compares love to food here, and Orsino wants more and more of it. This tells us he is not really in love with Olivia herself. He is in love with the feeling of being in love. Shakespeare immediately presents love as excessive and unrealistic. Then later in Act 1, Scene 5, Olivia meets Cesario, who is actually Viola in disguise. And almost immediately, she falls in love. After Cesario leaves, Olivia says, even so quickly may one catch the plague? Quick context. Olivia is shocked by how suddenly she has developed feelings for Cesario. Notice Shakespeare's comparison. She compares love to a disease, something sudden, something uncontrollable, something that spreads quickly. Shakespeare uses this to show that love in the play is irrational and impulsive. People fall in love without thinking clearly. Now, the dramatic technique Shakespeare mainly uses to develop this theme is disguise. Viola disguises herself as Cesario, and because of this disguise, Olivia falls in love with the wrong person, and the disguise creates emotional confusion throughout the play. Shakespeare uses this confusion to show that love is often based on appearances rather than truth. Another major theme in the play is appearance versus reality. Almost nobody in Twelfth Night is exactly who they appear to be. Characters constantly misunderstand the truth because they trust appearances too easily. One important example comes when Viola secretly admits to Olivia, I am not what I am. Quick context. Viola says this while pretending to be Cesario. Outwardly, she appears to be a young man, but in reality, she is a woman secretly in love with Orsino. This line highlights the gap between appearance and reality. Shakespeare shows that identity in the play becomes unstable and confusing because people cannot see the truth clearly. Another strong example comes from the Malvolio trick scene. Maria writes a fake letter pretending to be Olivia, and Malvolio completely believes it. Inside the letter, he reads, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Quick context. Malvolio believes Olivia secretly wants him to marry her and become powerful. Because he accepts this false reality, he behaves foolishly and humiliates himself. Shakespeare shows how easily human beings can deceive themselves when they want something badly enough. Now, the dramatic technique linked to this theme is dramatic irony. The audience knows Viola is actually a woman. The audience also knows the letter is fake, but the characters do not know these things. This creates humor while also exposing how easily people are fooled by appearances. Shakespeare uses dramatic irony to show the gap between truth and illusion. Now let's move to the theme of ambition and social climbing. This theme mainly appears through Malvolio. Malvolio wants to rise above his social class and become powerful. His ambition blinds him completely. While daydreaming about a future with Olivia, he excitedly says, to be Count Malvolio. Quick context. Malvolio is imagining himself becoming a nobleman through marriage. This reveals his strong desire for status and power. Shakespeare presents ambition here as prideful and unrealistic. Then the fake letter instructs Malvolio to behave strangely in order to impress Olivia. One instruction says, Remember who commended thy yellow stockings. Quick context. Malvolio believes dressing foolishly will make Olivia love him. Instead, he embarrasses himself completely. His blind ambition destroys his judgment and dignity. Shakespeare shows how dangerous ambition becomes when people lose self-awareness. Now, the dramatic technique connected to this theme is the comic subplot. Malvolio's story runs alongside the main romantic plot. His ambition becomes a source of humor for the audience. Shakespeare uses this subplot to mock people who try to rise socially through arrogance and self-importance. Now, this next theme is where the play becomes darker than many students expect. The theme is cruelty versus entertainment. At first, the prank against Malvolio seems funny. Sir Toby, Maria, Fabian, and Feste trick him because they dislike his strict behavior, but slowly the prank becomes cruel. After Malvolio is locked in a dark room and treated like he is insane, he cries out, "They have laid me here in hideous darkness." Quick context. Malvolio is isolated and emotionally distressed. Even though the prank started as entertainment, it now causes real suffering. Shakespeare shows how humor can cross the line into cruelty when people stop caring about the feelings of others. Then at the end of the play, Malvolio leaves angrily, saying, "I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you." Quick context. Malvolio does not join the happy ending celebrations. He leaves hurt, humiliated, and furious. This creates an uncomfortable ending because not everyone in the comedy is happy. Shakespeare reminds the audience that cruel actions can leave permanent emotional damage. The dramatic technique linked to this theme is situational irony. The prank was supposed to create laughter, but instead it causes suffering. The expected outcome becomes the opposite outcome. Shakespeare uses this irony to show that comedy can sometimes have dark consequences. Now let's look at the theme of identity and self-discovery. Throughout the play, Viola struggles with hiding who she truly is. After realizing Olivia has fallen in love with Cesario, Viola admits, "Disguise, I see thou art a wickedness." Quick context. Viola realizes her disguise is now causing emotional confusion for everyone involved. Olivia loves a false identity, Orsino trusts her as a male servant, and Viola herself feels trapped. Shakespeare presents identity as fragile and complicated when people cannot openly be themselves. Then in the final recognition scene, Viola finally reveals the truth by declaring, "I am Viola." Quick context. After Sebastian appears, the confusion is finally resolved. Viola no longer has to pretend. Truth restores order to the play. Shakespeare suggests that honesty and self-acceptance bring emotional peace. The dramatic techniques connected to this theme are soliloquies and asides. Viola frequently reveals her private thoughts directly to the audience. This allows the audience to understand her true identity, even while the other characters remain confused. Shakespeare uses this technique to strengthen the audience's emotional connection to Viola's struggle. Now let's talk about one of the big essay themes in Twelfth Night, festivity versus order. Sir Toby represents fun, celebration, chaos, and freedom. Malvolio represents discipline, seriousness, and control. During the late night drinking scene, Sir Toby defends partying by saying, "Dost thou think, because thou art virtuous, there shall be no more cakes and ale?" Quick context. Sir Toby is mocking Malvolio for trying to stop the celebrations. He believes life should include enjoyment and freedom. This represents the festive spirit of the play. Then Malvolio enters angrily and demands silence. He asks, "My masters, are you mad?" Quick context. Malvolio sees the singing and drinking as disorderly and inappropriate. He represents social order and discipline. Shakespeare creates conflict between celebration and control. The dramatic technique connected to this theme is comic conflict. The clash between Sir Toby and Malvolio creates humor throughout the play. But underneath the humor, Shakespeare explores the tension between freedom and authority. Too much disorder becomes destructive. Too much control destroys joy. Finally,